Welcome to today's webinar. We're very excited about a new product that we have here. Today I have Herm Gustafson of our product marketing, one of our product marketing engineers, who's going to be giving this presentation on our new HOBO MX CO2 logger. It's part number MX1102. So without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to Herm and take it away.
Thank you, Scott. That was Scott Ellis, our product marketing manager at Onset. My name's Herm Gustafson. Some of you may have heard my name before. I've done some training and some videos on YouTube. Today we're going to talk about our latest product that just came out last week, the MX CO2 logger, or the MX1102. So our agenda today, we're going to introduce you to the logger. We're going to talk just briefly about why CO2 monitoring is important in indoor spaces, if you don't already know that. We're going to talk about the key features of the product, some specifications. We're going to talk about the sensor technology that's used in this product. We're going to mention some applications which you might be interested in hearing about. We're going to show you what's included when you purchase one of these devices. We'll go through some FAQs, or frequently asked questions. And then we're going to leave some time for questions at the end, and we're going to answer those for you. The webinar will run about 30 minutes. It's fairly short. We're going to have about 15 minutes for questions at the end. Please type your questions in the questions section of the control panel on your GoToWebinar panel there, and this is being recorded, and it will be posted on our website for folks to get at a later date if you came in late or weren't able to hear the whole thing. So here is our new HOBO MX CO2 logger, the MX1102. It's the latest indoor logger that we offer that can use the Bluetooth Smart, or what's called Bluetooth Low Energy, Bluetooth or BLE communication technology. So you can communicate with this device using your Bluetooth 4.0 or Bluetooth Smart enabled device, a tablet, a smartphone, etc. Just a brief overview. Why do we want to monitor CO2? Well, CO2 it's a function of metabolic activity for humans. You exhale CO2 quite a lot at a regular interval. So because you're exhaling so much CO2 and people work in these environments that might be closed in or not ventilated correctly, it's important to know what's going on in there. CO2 can cause occupants to be drowsy. You could get headaches. You could operate at lower activity levels, and it could actually kill you if it got too high. So it's important to know what these levels may be in occupied spaces to determine what your ventilation rate should be. Monitoring CO2 levels, again, it provides valuable data to the decision makers, people who are designing buildings, people who are operating the HVAC systems. It gives them the ability to make improvements on the settings of those systems that can improve the indoor air quality and could significantly save energy costs if people are perhaps over-ventilating their spaces. So it's an important measurement to make. Some of the resources that we used for this information, the ASHRAE, which is American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, Air Conditioning Engineers. They have a specification that includes ventilation rates for acceptable indoor air quality, which includes CO2 monitoring as part of the determination of those rates. Also, the EPA has some design tools for schools specifically, but also for other spaces for acceptable CO2 levels in those spaces. So these are important specifications. Certainly if you're involved in this kind of monitoring, you're probably already aware of those specifications. Just some reference material, approximately your outdoor air levels, your outdoor levels of CO2, 350 to 450. That's in a relatively clean environment. Certainly if you're in a city environment where there's a lot of activity, a lot of perhaps automotive cars going back and forth, etc. That could be higher than that. Also, we've heard that places in Asia, because of air quality issues, the ambient CO2 levels could be higher as well. But again, this gives us some idea of what acceptable levels might be, where our thresholds are for pain, and when we get drowsy, when we have adverse health effects, and also some information about suggested ventilation rates based on spaces. Again, I believe this is from ASHRAE, classrooms and conference rooms, 15 cubic feet per minute per occupant, basically at 1,000 ppm CO2. And then office space and restaurants, a little bit more of a ventilation rate, and hospitals certainly higher than that. So some interesting information about that. Okay, so our key features of our MX1102 or our HOBO MX CO2 logger. The list price is $595. It includes the sensors for monitoring temperature, relative humidity, and CO2 are built into the logger. They're internal to the device, and it's designed to be used in a non-condensing environment. We get a lot of questions about monitoring CO2 in greenhouses and outdoor spaces. Not really where this is designed, what this is designed for. However, if you were in a greenhouse or a grow room that perhaps does not experience non-condensing moisture, it might work just fine for you. But again, we want to be careful. We don't want to put it in a condensing environment. One of the new features, the exciting new features about this product is that not only does it work with not only can you communicate wirelessly using the Bluetooth Smart or Bluetooth Low Energy technology, but you could also communicate directly with a USB cable using the latest version of the HOBOware software. This is very handy for people who perhaps don't have a device. They don't have a smartphone or an iPad or something like that yet, but they still want to take advantage of the device. They can use their standard PC or Mac computer and a USB cable and download our free of charge HOBOware software and use the product that way. It operates on 4 standard AA batteries, and it'll run for 6 months on battery power only. You can also, if you wanted to deploy it for longer periods, you could actually power it from a USB power supply. Any standard 5-volt DC USB power source can be used. Again, we want to make sure that it has that host connection, and the logger itself uses a mini B type connection, which is our standard USB cable that we resell. So you could get one from us if you had a power source. If you wanted to power it, one of the things to keep in mind is that when you plug it into USB power, the device that CO2 sensor starts monitoring once a second, and they'll be updated. Those measurements will be updated once a second when it's operated on USB power. Otherwise, when you're logging, it'll update every 5 minutes, and that's a battery conservation process. So we want to make sure that we're not killing the battery too quickly. The CO2 sensor in this device does use a lot of power, so that's why we do it that way. It includes an audible alarm, just like the MX1101. It has the Find Me pager feature built into the app, so if you have your iPhone and you have several of these in a facility and you don't know which one is which, you can just press page, and it will the device that you're connected to will beep, and it'll give you a little hello display in the LCD. You can also set it up, you can password protect it so other people can't get in and change the configuration via the app. So a quick tour, here's our logger laying on its back, and here's a quick tour of the different the external components. We've got an LCD, the LCD screen, the CO2 sensor is located in that round area, the RH sensor, the temperature sensor, and then we have 3 buttons: calibrate, clear, and next, and start and stop. These are only enabled if you launch the logger in that configuration. We're going to talk about these different configurations. Calibrate is for manual calibration. Clear and next is if you could press it to clear on alarm, or scroll to another page if you have statistics enabled. And then start and stop should be fairly straightforward. If you've launched the logger to start or stop on a button push, that's the button you push, and there's the USB port on the left-hand side there. This is an overview of the LCD screen itself with all of the segments enabled. We're just going to kind of go through these a little bit. Each reading has its own alarm indication if there's an alarm condition specified. The large display is the CO2 display. We have a BLE host connected and signal strength indicator. If you're using USB, it will show you the little USB if you're connected as a host. In other words, if you're communicating via USB. If you're only using it for power, or if you're using host and power, both of those icons will show up. If you were using BLE and USB power, you'll see PWR and then the little host connected and single strength indicator there. Battery level icon. You'll get an indication that the logger is logging when it is launched and logging. There's a memory used status bar, as well as a wrap enable that's with a little arrow that goes around from the right over to the left. That's telling you that it was configured to wrap or circular log. In other words, start logging over the old data when the new once the memory is filled. That RH display is right there. If you have, you can log this device to monitor statistics, log statistical data, and this is where those would be displayed if if it's so configured. There's an LCD update status bar. We're going to talk about how that works in just a moment, but that's underneath the CO2 indicator. I'm going to show you a little animation that shows you how that works in just a moment. Temperature display is located there, and then the functions for each button are included on the LCD also. So if any of these functions are enabled when you launch the logger, they are displayed on the LCD. If those functions are not enabled when you launch the logger, they are not included on the LCD. Okay, so a quick discussion of how that status bar works. Because of the way the CO2 sensor operates, it takes a long time to warm up. It takes about 16 seconds for that device to warm up and take a measurement. And in order to conserve battery power and in order to be able to run this logger for 6 months on battery power, what we do is we limit it to an update or a refresh of the CO2 measurement every 5 minutes when it is operating on battery power. So what we've done, and again, this kind of highlights what happens. The LCD status bar will indicate the time remaining until the next CO2 display update. There's basically what you have is you have 20 segments, and each one illuminates 15 seconds after 15 seconds. So if you multiply 20 times 15, you'll get 300 seconds or 5 minutes. So when all 20 segments are illuminated, the refresh of that CO2 measurement happens. I have a little animation. This is sped up very quickly, but basically what you'll see is you'll see this every 15 seconds. It'll move towards the CO2 indicator or the LCD, and then when you see it, when it gets to the CO2 indication, the screen and the CO2 value will update, so it'll take another measurement. And then that resets back to the beginning and keeps going every 15 seconds until that 5 minutes is up. Important to understand that temperature and relative humidity when running on battery power will update. The LCD display will update every 15 seconds, but CO2 will be every 5 minutes. And that is a battery conservation measure that we took. Quick discussion of specs. Basically, this has the same amount of memory as the MX1101 product, if you're familiar with that, 84,000 measurements or 128K. The CO2 sensor, it uses a technology called non-dispersive infrared absorption technology. We're going to talk about that in a moment. It does support both automatic and manual calibration. We're going to talk about that also. The range is 0 to 5,000 ppm. The accuracy is plus or minus 50 ppm, plus or minus 5% of reading. Our response time is about a minute. Our temperature sensor is, the performance of that is pretty much the same as the MX1101 and very similar to most of our products. It does have a little bit of a delayed response time because of the size of the case. And the RH sensor, again, same RH sensor is used as is used in the MX1101, the Temp RH Bluetooth logger. Quick discussion of the CO2 sensor that we're using. Again, we're using non-dispersive infrared technology, or what's called NDIR absorption technology. It's been around for a bit and pretty well received in the marketplace. Several of our competitors use it. Basically, it requires no calibration gases for recalibration. You recalibrate it using fresh air. I know one of the products that we still resell, the Tel-Air device from GE, I believe they use nitrogen as you have to buy a calibration kit, which nitrogen represents 0 CO2. This product, you don't need to do that. You can calibrate it in fresh air, which, as we saw before, is between 350 and 450 ppm. We have 2 self-calibration methods that are enabled by default when you buy the logger or when you launch it. Manual calibration, we consider this the most accurate calibration method. This method we recommend for environments where elevated CO2 levels may always be present throughout the deployment, or if you're monitoring a space where you don't know what the CO2 levels are. Typically, that's why you do monitor CO2, so because you don't know what those levels are. I can tell you that in a building such as ours at onset, we are not there are not people in there 24/7, so at night the CO2 levels, it's fairly well ventilated too, so the CO2 levels do go down to the outdoor range at night when no one's there, so the automatic calibration mode would work fine in a space like that. But manual calibration gives you a better handle on keeping that calibrated where you, again, in spaces where you don't quite know what's going on. Automatic calibration is also enabled by default. Basically what happens is the logger will sit there and it will be logging data, and after the first 24 hours it'll find the lowest point that it saw during that period, take the next 3, average those together, subtract that from 400, and that's how that automatic calibration will be applied, and then it will do that every 8 days after that. Manual and auto cal are enabled by default. When you launch the logger, you can disable either one. Some application information. We did quite a bit of survey work, marketing research when we were looking to develop this product. And we found that they basically, the folks that responded, we asked about 500 people what kind of some information about how they monitor CO2, and the most popular application for monitoring CO2 that came back were schools. Next was office spaces. Hospitals were important, laboratories, residences, museums, somewhat important. Again, it's a public space, although not occupied 24/7 usually. Warehouses and storage areas. There's a new application, or a fairly recent application, that came up that we think may be important for monitoring CO2. Gymnasiums. You think about a gym, especially a public gym, or a place where people, they may have may go there to work out. There's a lot of metabolic activity going on in there, and a lot of CO2 being generated. So there's been more and more interest in monitoring CO2 in gymnasium type applications and workout areas. A quick screenshot of our HOBO mobile app. If you're familiar with that app, using the MX1101, which is the TempRH version, MX, the first in a series. Again, it's very similar. You would select, again, when you connect to it, you go into the configure menu, you select what channels you want to monitor. Again, it's very straightforward, very simple to use. Some data, when we read it out, again, this is your typical temp, RH, and CO2 data, how it's plotted in HOBO Mobile. You can use your share button here to share that data either via email or to whatever other type of app you may have for sharing data on your phone or on your tablet. And you can share it in a variety of formats. You can save it in our .hobo format, which you can open in our free of charge HOBOware software, or Excel, either in CSV, text, or XLSX format. This is a screenshot from HOBOware that kind of shows you how an auto calibration event happens, or how it's tagged. Basically what you'll see is over here in the event, it'll say there's been an automatic calibration. It tags it or flags it in the data set. And also here, what this number means is that what it did was it looked at the average of the three measurements that followed the lowest CO2 measurement over that 24-hour or 8-day period, and then it calculates what the offset should be from 400, and it applies that offset to your data. Again, this only works if you are in a well-ventilated space where your CO2 levels go down to ambient at some time during either 24-hour or 8-day period. We don't recommend this for everyone. Certainly the manual calibration makes a lot of sense for most people. But if you are in a well-ventilated space, the auto cal works just fine. A quick review of Bluetooth Smart, or what they call Bluetooth Low Energy or BLE technology. Again, it's these devices, unlike your classic Bluetooth or your what they call streaming Bluetooth, where you have to pair a device to another device. You have to pair your phone to a speaker, to a headset, or to a pair of Bluetooth headphones. Bluetooth smart devices or Bluetooth low energy devices are always continuously advertising their presence. So as long as you have a master device, a smartphone, tablet, something that has this Bluetooth smart capabilities, and an app that can talk to this device, it will see all the devices that are in range, as long as that app is open. Again, it transmits up to 100 feet line of sight. And again, HOBO Mobile allows you to configure, start, offload, and share your recorded data with other folks and other applications. So when you purchase one of these devices, obviously you will need a logger, and then you will either need to download the HOBO Mobile app, which is free of charge. Right now it's released for iOS devices only. We expect Android later this year. This gives you some guidelines as to what products you would need that are compatible with this device. If you do not have an iOS compatible device currently and are waiting for Android to be released, you can certainly download the free version of HOBOware from our website and get a USB cable and use it that way until the Android release is available. Or if you don't want to use the device at all, you can certainly use it that way too. It's very flexible. Included in the package, you get your batteries. Batteries are included in this case. You get a couple of cable ties. There's a couple of little mounting brackets that allow you to use those cable ties to attach this thing to a pipe or some other freestanding device. There's also two 3M what they call command strips. These are those adhesive devices that allow you to connect or attach pictures to the wall without having to put a hole in the wall itself, and then you just pull on them and they release. They're not reusable, but you can certainly use it to hang it on the wall if you don't want to drill a hole. Or there's also two mounting holes in the back if you wanted to drill holes. We have a wall drilling pattern template that allows you to drill and put anchors in if you want to hang that on the wall. It also comes with the quick start guide. There's going to be a couple of additional accessories for this that includes a lockable box that goes on the wall and a little USB power supply, and we expect those to be available on our website here probably in the next week or so. Quick review of FAQs, some things that have come up while we've been developing this product and since it's been released. People want to know, is the CO2 sensor in the logger calibrated prior to shipment from the factory? Well, what we do is we take the loggers and we launch them, and then we compare them to a calibrated third-party CO2 monitor, and we standardize those to that reading. Question came up, I want to deploy my MX1102 immediately upon receipt. As soon as I get it in the mail or get it, UPS drops it on my front step, I want to use it immediately. Will I have to run a calibration, either a manual or an auto cal, prior to deployment? Our recommendation, yes. For the best accuracy, it's recommended that you do a manual calibration prior to your deployment, only because these sensors, they're optical in nature. So drift is affected by atmospheric conditions. So we don't know what kind of conditions they might have been exposed to during shipment or how long they've been sitting on the shelf. So it probably makes sense when you get the device, take it outside, run a manual calibration, which is highlighted in that quick start guide, and then you'd be up and running. It'll only take you about 5 minutes or so. And again, just a reminder, if you do a manual calibration, it will cancel that first 24-hour automatic calibration event. So then you calibrate it, manually calibrate it, you put it in your space, and it'll sit there and log away. And then after 8 days, it will do its automatic calibration if you left that enabled when you launched it. Again, you have to launch the logger in order to use it and in order for it to calibrate. So you either have to launch it with your HOBO mobile app or with the HOBOware app in order to use the device. Question came up, is manual calibration enabled from the factory? Sure is. Both manual and automatic calibration are enabled by default when you launch the logger. You don't have to go in and manually say, yes, I want it to auto cal or manual cal. You do have the ability to change it. So if you wanted to go in and say, nope, I don't want to use that automatic cal, I don't trust it, uncheck it and just leave manual cal enabled. Another question that comes up, what effect does altitude have on your CO2 measurements? Very good question. It does. Absolutely. The absorption process that's used in this NDIR sensor is pressure dependent. So it will change. There is a spec here. It says it'll vary 0.135% of reading for each millibar change in barometric pressure. The bottom line or the rule of thumb that we're telling people is if you're deploying the logger above 1,000 feet or above 305 meters, go in and put in your altitude, what your altitude is, and that will help compensate for that change. Otherwise, your data may not be as accurate as it should be. And again, once below 1,000 feet really doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but once you start getting above 1,000, it does make a difference. And the higher you go, the more of a difference it makes. I believe we support altitude adjustment up to about 18,000 feet or 5,900 meters. Just a quick reference. Again, here's a little quick table that shows you what your barometric pressure changes would be based on altitude. And here's a screenshot from HOBOware. This is the launch screen in HOBOware. You can see there's a button called CO2 settings, and when you press that, this is where you would go in and either check or uncheck your auto cal or your manual cal, or to select to use your carbon dioxide altitude compensation, and you put that number in either feet or meters. This function is also available in HOBO Mobile in the app for the iOS. You go into CO2 sensor configuration and you click on altitude compensation, and it will ask, it'll give you a place to put that number in, and you can select either manual or automatic cal. And that's all I have right now.
Yeah, thanks, Harm. We've got some good questions here. Wanted to throw a couple your way.
Sure.
Is it possible to operate the logger without the display? Basically you can record data but not have the display on.
Sure can. Yep. There's just like the MX1101 product and all our UX products that have LCD displays, you can disable that LCD display as well.
Great. And actually, I've got I'll take this one from Kevin.
Yeah.
So as some of you who may be Android users, you may jump onto Google Play and you may see HOBO Mobile up there. Basically, that does not have support for the CO2 sensor at this point. So you could download it, but it wouldn't communicate with the MX1102. It would just work with the MX1101. So as I said, that's going to be coming probably in another 3 or 4 months. We'll have support on the Android, but in the meantime, you can use HOBOware through a regular computer. But we've got another one here. Do you have to download the data, or can you see the HOBO data in real time from your phone? don't know if you want to take that one or.
Yeah, I can take that. Yeah, it's a good question. You can see real time when you connect to it. You will see what the values currently are displayed textually. You cannot see real time graphs on your phone or on your tablet, but you can see what the sensor is reading when you're connected to it. It is really designed to not to stream data, but to allow you to offload data wirelessly and either plot that historical data or share it. But again, you will see what the current readings are in your app.
Perfect. So here's one on the calibration here. How often do you recommend doing the manual calibration?
It's a very good question. It comes up quite regularly, and it really does depend on the application. I can tell you that the calibration algorithm that we're using, the offset from 400, the 24-hour automatic calibration, the 8-hour or the 8-day automatic calibration come right from the CO2 sensor manufacturer. So what I have been recommending and what we have been recommending through our technical support folks is the automatic cal does it every 8 days. Perhaps you should do manual cals every 8 days as well. It really does depend on the application though, because you're using optical technology, the drift level is really dependent on how much contamination this thing gets over its deployment period. So it only takes 5 minutes to do a manual cal. Again, sometimes that's a bit of a pain if you're deploying the device for months at a time, but that's about the best answer I can give you, unfortunately.
No, that's great. That's helpful. Um, let's see here. Can CO2 be logged more than every 5 minutes? And oh wait, that just jumped. And the LCD still display 5-minute values, or is the absolute limit 5 minutes for the CO2 measurement frequency?
Good. That's a very good question. You can log it faster. However, the sensor is being refreshed every 5 minutes. So if you're logging every minute, what you'll see is 5 readings that are all the same until it refreshes after 5. So
You're,
really, to get
you're talking
refresh
on the
data,
LCD?
I'm talking in log data too.
Gotcha.
Yeah, log data. Unfortunately, the fastest we're going to refresh that, we're going to wake up that sensor is, unless you're plugged into the USB port. If you're plugged in to USB power, that thing is firing every second. So you could conceivably be logging your data as fast as once a second.
So if we have this plugged in through USB power, which is essentially keeping the sensor on, I could log as quick as every second.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's battery powered, we're looking at 5 minutes.
You could still log every second under battery power, but
Mm-hmm.
what you're going to end up with is 300 measurements that are the same until that 5-minute refresh rate time comes up.
Gotcha. All right. So here's one that I'll field here. Will HOBO Mobile allow you to save a preset configuration that can be applied to your logger when retrieving the data? Right now it appears that it must be done each time you retrieve the data. So what I'll say is that there is, if you go into the settings within the HOBO Mobile app, there is a configure setting. So although you can't like save a configuration, but if you were to, let's say, set up one logger and then you wanted to set up multiple loggers after that, you can go in and set up your first logger and then turn on that configuration feature, and basically it'll apply those settings to the next loggers that you set up. So what I would do is take a look in the settings of the HOBO Mobile app, and I think that might meet your needs there. So obviously feel free to reach out if it doesn't, but I'm pretty sure that will. Let's see what else we got here. Here's a good one. Is the alarm indication logged? Can you see what readings have triggered an alarm?
Yes, yeah, you can. Basically, what you'll see is and you're talking, I don't know if they're talking Hobo Mobile or Hobo Where.
I think it'll do it in both, right?
Yeah, you'll basically what you'll end up with is a shaded area in your data file in your XY plot. So what you'll see is if you have a high alarm set, it'll be shaded in red and again like a pink hue. A low alarm would be in blue, and then you will see when it crosses that in your data as to when you were when you were in alarm condition over that period.
And then I believe it gives you an event too, so it gives you your most
Yep,
outside of range, and it logs that as well. So whatever
yep,
the highest or lowest value is.
yep, true.
Let's see here. I think we may have touched on all these here. Oh, does the logger have magnetic mounts too?
Good question. No, this particular product does not have the magnets in it like the some of our other products do. Sounds like you're familiar with them. Only because it is so heavy because of the size of the CO2 sensor and the fact that it's got four AA batteries in it. So it's pretty heavy. We would have to put quite a few magnets in it in order to mount it. So no, this does not come with the magnetic mounts.
But we do supply it with the command strip tape, right?
Yes, we do.
And then we've got our new, here's the upsell, we've got the new enclosure coming soon, sorry.
That's okay.
I've got one more here. Actually, this is in relation to the RH sensor. Um, so obviously the logger can do temperature and humidity and CO2. So will the RH sensor drift, and is it possible to adjust the RH sensor, or does it just need to be replaced?
Yeah, good question. We don't allow any adjustment of any of our measurements by customers, either mechanically or electronically. That was a conscious decision, I think, that was made quite a few years ago. Some of our competitors allow you to dial a measurement, as I call it. But basically, what you would have to do is if you've determined that it's drifted, by whatever means you may have done that, you would have to return it to the factory and we could replace that sensor for you.
Great, and actually I've got a clarification here. Um, Benny, what I'd say, hey Herm, can you hit the next slide with contact information? You've got that here?
Oh, I don't have contact here, but I can we can shoot that
Okay.
to him. Get his email.
Yeah,
Get his email address.
I was going to say, Benny, for your follow-up, just reach out to either Herm or myself, and we can take a look at the on how the settings. So we really don't have a lot of. Thank you. I'll reach out to you through email, but I'll say there's not a lot of settings on the graph side of things in Hobo Mobile, but you can share through email the .hobo file, and that can essentially be opened up in the free and the pro version of HOBOware for Windows and Mac, and so that allows you to do a lot of data manipulation on the graph over there. So that may meet your needs there, but either way, I'll
That's
reach
a
out
good.
to you.
Great, thanks, Scott. That's a good point you bring up too, Benny, because one of the things that I always mention is I do a lot of some of our distribution channel training, and people always ask, well, what format should I be sharing this data in? I mean, everybody has a favorite format, but if you're familiar with using HOBOware and you like using HOBOware, the .hobo file is one of the smallest files uh, format-wise that you can share. So it takes very short amount of time and very easy to share it in that format. And then you can, again, if you do your manipulation in HOBOware, and then you can export that as an Excel spreadsheet. So that's another option.
Yeah, so I guess we'll just kind of wrap things up here. I've got one more question actually from Jennifer here, and actually, so this her question is can this logger also look at energy readings? And basically this logger is dedicated to CO2 temperature and humidity. We do have other products that will allow you to measure KW and KWH. And one of the nice things about HOBOware is that you do have the ability to, let's say you want to overlay the KWH readings from an HVAC system, an air conditioning system, against CO2 levels. You have the ability to combine that data within HOBOware, or if you wanted to take that over to Excel, you have the ability to do that as well. So
if she's still, Jennifer, if you're still on there, if you want to share your email address, we can send you some information about how to do that also.
So I've got an interesting question here from Alec, and it says if we install one MX logger per each room, and basically have a total of 8 different loggers here, is there a way to remotely get these to a receiver or network them essentially? And basically at this point we don't have that capabilities. So you would have to go to the home and basically be within 100 feet of those 8 units. Now, with that being said, we do have other products that do give you those capabilities in our ZW series and our RX product line. So that may be something to explore on a side note. So.
And that will be a good new product request. We always log any kind of new product requests from customers. So thank you for that input, and we'll get that. We will get that noted as a request.
Yeah, so thank you for everybody who shot over their emails real quick in regards to the energy side of stuff as well. We'll certainly, whether it's Herm or myself or one of our application specialists, we'll definitely have them reach out to you. And just before we wrap this up, yeah, we are looking at other loggers for Bluetooth. I can't go into the specific details, but we have been beyond amazed at the response of the temperature and humidity logger that we initially came out with, and the Bluetooth low energy seems like a really great way to go, and especially to communicate to these guys. You're not using a laptop and a USB cable and all that sort of fun stuff. So all I can say is stay tuned. So I'll let you wrap this up, Herm.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for attending. It was great questions, and we do appreciate it. We do appreciate the attention. And stay tuned to Onset. We've got some exciting new products coming, and certainly if any further questions come up, I didn't include my contact information, but certainly get in touch with Cynthia, who sent you the invitation, and she can forward that over to me or to Scott, and we'll get you the answers that you need. Thanks again. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of your summer.